Okay, so today at the Starfighter headquarters, we have a casuals conversation with Austin Trotman. Austin Trotman is a four-time NCAA Championship Qualifier, three-time SoCon champion, and Appalachian State alumni, as long as also as well as being the head wrestling coach for BMA at North Carolina. So before anything, how you doing today, man?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Trying to stay alive. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's early over here, but I'm always up this early. You know what I mean? Hey, so for the people who don't know, you can please do a brief introduction of yourself, of just of your upbringings.
Yeah, my name is Austin Trotman. Born and raised in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I wrestled there at Mount Tabor High School, won states twice. Went up going to App State. Stayed there for a couple of years. I ended up becoming an All-American. I took third place my senior year, 2012, which was awesome. And then after that, I wasn't ready to be done wrestling, so I continued wrestling for the U.S. team. I did that for 2 years at App State, and then I moved out to Nebraska to train with the University of Nebraska Lincoln team. So James Green was out there, Jordan Burroughs was out there. So I trained out with those guys for a couple of years, and I ended up retiring wrestling in 2017. Moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, got plugged in with Brunson's MMA and Fitness, started coaching wrestling there, and now I started fighting.
Oh, so you started fighting?
I did start fighting. 3 matches in so far. And
What was the transition like?
So it wasn't as hard as I was expected to be. I mean, what I missed the most was competition. I like training for something, which is nice. And then after wrestling, I didn't see myself going back into the wrestling realm anymore. That being said, there is a pretty easy transition from wrestling to MMA, at least for me so far.
Yeah.
Just learning jiu-jitsu, it seemed like a natural transition, even though I get pretty ticked off on getting reversed and, and stuff in those classes. But it seems to be relatively smooth. I understand the positioning very well, but submitting people, man, I'm just not there yet. Not even close.
What is it with you Carolina boys? You guys are so tough, man. Everybody coming out of there. I got this one guy, he knows you. He knows Derek. He wrestled, went all the way to the Citadel, and he's just so rough when it comes to rolling, man. I'm like, God. He's like, hey, man, it's my first day. Let's take it easy, because he's a wrestler going into BJJ and just so rough, man. Is it
I don't know, man.
thing?
They get something in the water, I guess.
Yeah, something in the water. Because he had mentioned, he's like, oh yeah, I rolled around a couple of times with Derek Brunson, and he's like, and he's a rough guy. I'm like, bro, you're a rough guy. What are you talking about? Being pissed off over here. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, it's funny, like, because with the exception of maybe jiu-jitsu or something like that, I guess when you're done competing with wrestling, there is no pick up wrestling matches at the gym.
Yeah,
it's
you
like
have to go out of your way to join.
Yeah, you never really turn it off. So I guess that's kind of transferring into our other sports. You just expect to be that intense because when you're training for wrestling, that's what you do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what was your first introduction to wrestling? Like, how was it? Was it a young age? Was it middle school? What was the thing that caught your attention? You're like, hey, you know what? I like this.
Man, so I played football my entire life. Like, so when I say my entire life, from age 5 to age 15, I planned on playing in college and all that jazz. But I already knew before I even got to high school that I was going to at least try and wrestle. Now, before I'm from Winston-Salem. Wrestling's not too big in the middle school. I don't even think they had it at my middle school. But after football season in 9th grade, I just tried out for wrestling. I just tried it out, and it wasn't that good. I went 3-8. That's my freshman year.
Really?
But that being said, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get better at that. So I stopped everything else. I stopped wrestling. I stopped playing football, and I just focused completely on wrestling, man. And I think I broke my dad's heart for a little bit because he loved football. He loved watching me play. He came to all my games. And we had a conversation talking about, we need to go get you some new cleats. And I was like, let's go get some new wrestling shoes because I don't think I'm gonna play football anymore. I don't think he liked that. I think he's okay with it now, but at the time, I think I hurt his feelings a little bit.
Panned out, right? Now it was like, he's like, told you.
Okay. Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I noticed you were picking up or you are a skateboarder, right? Correct?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you had mentioned how that helped you on wrestling. And
Yeah.
how exactly?
So in two aspects of it,
Okay.
from the physical and mental. Physically, with your balance, man, being able to balance on four wheels or go up transitions or just understanding body awareness, like it's just, I think it's extremely important in both wrestling and skateboarding. And
Your equilibrium, right? I know a bunch of people
exactly,
do equilibrium training, but that's a fun way to do it. That's a complete. I've never thought about that. They had us rolling around constantly and doing stuff to get us dizzy and get into the shape. But that's crazy how
yeah,
skateboarding. I just would have never thought about that. So
yeah,
what
man.
else?
I mean, yeah, physically, I think it's just the balance and learning your body, learning how to fall, learning what your body can do. It works out perfect. Mentally, I think both of them are individual sports. As in, you're not blaming anyone else for you not landing a trick or not winning a match. It's on you completely.
Oh,
And
okay.
I relate with that so well. And I think those two they go together like hand in glove, man.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah, that makes complete sense. You can only blame yourself in that situation and also in the mat. That's why that's a big difference, right? When in football, going from football to wrestling, you got a whole
right.
team and you can blame five other people for this and all that stuff. But ultimately in wrestling, it's it's you and
Yeah.
you by yourself.
Yeah. And I really get down with that, man. I'm really a big fan of like pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Like there is no one else to blame but yourself.
That's great.
And the wrestling has really just been the perfect sport for that kind of mindset.
Awesome. So was it your direct plug-in with Derek's gym? Was it how'd that go about? Was it just
Dude, it is so weird how that happened. So a lifetime friend, she's a real estate agent out in Wilmington, right? I think her and her husband were just walking around the mall, bro. Just walking around the mall and came across his gym, looked in it and whatever. Oh, you teach wrestling here? It's like, oh yeah, I do teach wrestling. I got a friend who's moving down. His name is Austin Trotman. He's gonna be coming down here. Oh, I know who Austin is. So like
oh
before I even moved to Wilmington, man, I kind of had a plug in. And even when I moved down here, like I didn't even stop by the gym for like a good 2 months. Like I
yeah.
was just okay with moving in and starting working and whatever. But I think that's how Derek and I got plugged in. Is through my friend randomly walking through the mall and seeing that they were wrestling. Like
That's
that's
awesome. That
and
is
I
that
think
is a pretty cool story, man. Just all of a sudden. And
yeah.
you guys knew each other.
Yeah, I mean I knew who he was. I mean,
Okay.
it's Derek Brunson. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I know who he was, but like
Yeah.
I didn't have his number wasn't in my phone. We weren't friends on Facebook or anything. But
Yeah.
yeah, he messaged me on Facebook and we've been friends ever since. It's been great.
Well, that's cool.
That's how I met him.
So we had gotten the pleasure of talking earlier this past week, and we had been talking. We went off a little bit of tangent about like religion and some aspects in religion, in theories and of it. And I just had to ask. You obviously wear your faith on your shoulders, which is great. I love somebody with convictions, no matter what religion they have, if it's personal convictions or religious convictions. But can you tell us what those convictions bring to your training? Those
Sure.
theories, disciplines.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a Christian. I believe uh, what Jesus said. I think they hold precedent. I think that they hold true. I think he was a real person. And more importantly, I think he died on the cross and was raised up. I actually do believe that.
Mhm.
That being said, like if you're going to call yourself a Jesus believer or a Jesus follower or whatever, I think that comes with some. It comes from some ground rules, like how you present yourself to others or how you treat other people,
Okay.
regardless of how they treat you. I mean, even if it's something as simple as not throwing your headgear or throwing a temper tantrum after you lose a match, I think
Okay.
that how you treat others and how you present yourself, especially in public, should be a reflection of what it is you actually believe in. So
Okay.
I think that's extremely true, and if that means that I got to hold my tongue when I don't I don't agree with someone, and I got to be friendly with them when I don't feel like it. I feel like if I'm able to do that, I'll have a better understanding of how God looks at them, and not how I, as a person, as a human, looks at them. So
Oh,
I think it's
okay.
really important to treat others with respect, not only as you would treat how would you want them to treat you, but I think I would go a step further and say I think you should try to treat them better than you want to be treated.
Okay.
And
So for that, does your faith manifest its way in your training and your training of others?
I would definitely say in the training of others, I see
Okay.
it more, um,
Really?
especially in the coaching realm. I feel like being able to put people, being able to be in a leadership position, it kind of puts me in a position where I have to show some sort of authority. I have to show that I care about your training. I want you to get better, and it's not just because it's a reflection of how I am as a coach, but I honestly
Yeah.
want to see you getting better. I'm putting time into you. Like,
Yeah.
it's the worst thing is to put so much time into something and not get any better. Now that being said, I think wrestling is kind of a blue collar sport, so to speak. I don't
Uh-huh.
think it gets much doesn't get much light. You don't see it on ESPN all the time.
Yeah,
So
unfortunately.
that being said, I think that I have a lot more of an influence on some other people's lives than I expected to in the realm of wrestling. Like, it's just going to happen. It's a pretty tight knit group. So if I have an opportunity to tell someone what it is I believe, I think I'm going to be able to express that much easier because there's much more of a personal relationship in the wrestling community than I would in any other sports group.
Yeah. So that's unique that you brought that up. And we're all aware that wrestling doesn't get the spotlight as much as it does. For a
Right.
little bit, they were talking about taking it out of the Olympics, which is
I
absolutely
know.
bonkers.
I
You know what
know.
I mean? That's far from there.
Yeah. Tell
But
me about
but also, it does. Does it put a chip on your shoulder? Does it make it like it feels like when it's at the highest level that you compete once you get to a certain division, once you get up there and all that stuff. But like I said, nobody's really, it doesn't, sometimes it might feel like nobody's really paying attention, but
it.
yet the time, effort, training, the competition, the blood and sweat and tears of people that go into the sport, put it
Yeah.
all in regardless of that. So is that ultimately a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Do you wish it would change a little bit?
I don't think so, man. I think it's a good thing. I
Yeah.
like to see people putting no matter what. Like at one point in time, like you said, we thought 2020 would be the last year for
Yep.
wrestling,
Yeah.
and it's like we still had people trying to get scholarships to D1 universities. Like it
Mhm.
didn't change anything. If anything, it showed you how important wrestling really is. Um, yeah, I have a hard time understanding why you want to get rid of something that's so personal. I mean, I feel like everyone who I've encountered who's had some sort of who's been in contact with a wrestler or has some kind of tie into wrestling
Mhm.
usually has something positive to say about the sport. Even if it's something like, "Oh, you guys are super tough." Like I don't
A
consider
shared
that
camaraderie. Yeah.
exactly. And like, I mean, to get rid of that for what I'm assuming is a quick buck, man, that was a little frustrating to hear.
Yeah, that was extremely frustrating. I went off on a tangent to my wife, and my wife's not even paying attention to me. So it's like I don't know what you want me to say. I'm like, yeah,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. That camaraderie's built, that following, just that community of people. When you see somebody with the tattoo of the NCAA, and like for
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
who love it, you're like, oh man, that is legit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No
I
doubt.
fanboy out about that kind of stuff. Um, so what is it that you like to teach your fighters on and off the mat?
Yeah. So in a very as like wrestling specific in the gym in the room, I'm really big, and this is not I guess this goes beyond wrestling in general, but just as a coach, I don't like hearing people complain about how tired they are. I
Really?
mean,
Oh
think about it.
man.
Like I'm thinking about it from my perspective. If you're competing against someone and you look over and you see them doing this number and like taking deep breaths and like have that face on, it's just like,
Yeah.
all right, I won. I got you beat. Look at you.
Okay.
So like I think it's really important, like especially even in MMA, like the sports where you're cutting weight, man, wipe your lips, get that crust off your lips, and like present yourself like you are ready to compete. I
Yeah.
think having that poker face, it just shows to me that, no matter what, I'm here to compete. And people feed off of that,
Yeah.
especially your opponent. Like I would
Blood in the
love to see
water.
my opponent turning. Yeah, exactly. You got to
Yeah.
smell the blood. My college coaches always say that, man. Smell the blood. Smell the blood.
Yeah.
And you see somebody bent over, tired. Like, all right, I
Okay.
got this one. Especially because I'm convinced that I will never lose a match or wrestling match, fight match, whatever, because I am tired. because that is something I have complete control over. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
okay.
Somebody might be more technically sound or whatever, but I can control my conditioning.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm really big on, especially in my class. Yo, I know you're tired. I've been through it. I'm not going to ask you to do something that I haven't done or wouldn't do. So
Perfect example of leadership. Yeah. You carry that over to any aspect of life in any job and all that stuff. Yeah. I wouldn't ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. It
right,
makes you farther. It takes you farther. It puts you in front of people. The people who look at you are looking and
hmm
they're like, hey man, well, it's like this guy can do it. I'm going to do it even better.
yeah, I mean, exactly. I said this
Yeah.
is going to be wrestling specific, but yeah, like there's the other
Yeah.
transition. Like it definitely carries on outside of the mat, man, outside of the gym. And yeah, during my class, like so I'm a big philosophy fan. Like
Yeah.
I studied it in college, and I tell people that if you're going to study any branch of science, any branch whatsoever, you have to always start at your foundation, which
Hmm.
is philosophy. Any realm of thought, you always start at philosophy.
Hmm.
And if you're going to study combat sports, you're going to talk about karate or jujitsu or you know kickboxing. You always start at your foundation, which is
Hmm.
wrestling. So I'd make it very important. That is, if you're going to try and be successful, in my opinion, in any combat sports, your foundation has to be concrete. It has to be sound. It has to be good. And in the,
Okay.
fighting realm, it's got to be wrestling. You got to have a great, solid foundation.
Okay,
So,
so that leads me to another question. There's a debate always, but I think I'm biased and I feel like I already know the answer. I know what you're going to give, but you need to explain to people why. Why is wrestling the best foundation for MMA to start off with? I know there's people who come from different backgrounds and all that stuff, but
mhm.
ultimately, is that your opinion? And if not, and if it is or if it isn't, please explain why.
The quick answer is yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think every fighter should know wrestling.
Hmm.
It's even better if you were a wrestler. You know what I'm saying? I think it's the best background to come into mixed martial arts. And that's not just my opinion. Like if I were to go through like middleweight champs, lightweight champs, heavyweight champs, and just name all the wrestlers, D1, D2, just have a wrestling background, I think that would speak for itself. But I think the reason of that is just what wrestling teaches you, man. Just not only body awareness, but toughness.
Hmm.
I mean, there's not again like my class that I teach. It's kind of hard to get numbers in there sometimes, but the people who come in there, like they learn something. They learn something every single time. And not to down jujitsu or anything, but I do think that jujitsu has more of a hobbyist background to it. As far as the people who are trying to join,
Yeah.
you can go 40 years old. You can go and join a jujitsu gym, and you're gonna love it. You're gonna enjoy it.
Yeah.
Whereas someone who's 40 trying to learn how to wrestle and they've never done anything, probably gonna have a tougher time.
Yeah.
Now switch that around,
Absolutely.
someone with a wrestling background who wants to take on any other sport, any other combat sport, I think that foundation is going to be great for them. I'll give you an example for myself. Like I haven't trained jujitsu before last year, and my biggest thing, I mean, the coaches, they always, if we start on our feet, I'm going to end up on top. It just happens that way, and I'm
Yeah.
okay with that, right? So our biggest thing is I start on my butt, which I absolutely hate when we do jujitsu because that's just where I need to learn. I need to get comfortable
Oh,
there.
okay.
And with the limited amount of skills that I have in jujitsu, mind you, I just started training less than a year ago.
Hmm.
I've had a fair amount of success. Um, at least learning how to pass people in sweeps, doing sweeps, stuff like that. My submissions are a little iffy right now, but
Okay.
just learning that like that none of that came from jujitsu. None of that came from that. It came from wrestling. It came from learning how to wrestle, just knowing where the body's supposed to be. I'll transfer that. There's some people who have who are great jujitsu guys. And they come to my wrestling class, and when I start showing takedowns, it doesn't seem like the transition is as smooth as it is for some of the wrestlers to go into to the jujitsu classes.
Hmm.
Now, I can't explain exactly why that is, but I can tell you that the transition just seems so much easier from wrestling to jiu-jitsu. I left out kickboxing on that one because if you just don't know how to punch, then it doesn't matter how well you're on the ground. Like you got to learn that from from the
Yeah.
ground up, regardless of what your background is. You got to learn how to punch. But as far as like hitting the ground, getting on the ground, first you got to be able to get someone there. And if you don't want to be there, you need to be able to get away.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
feel like I have both of those going into the jiu-jitsu realm, or any wrestler would. So I think, man, this the having that as your foundation, your solid foundation, I think gonna put you in a position to be successful in any combat sport.
Yeah, would you say that the conditioning for wrestlers is always crazy? It's
Yeah.
it's they're known for that. Would you say it's because like when it comes to the being in it, like once you're in the dirt, you're getting dirty and you're getting into it, it's easier for wrestler to get out because they're ultimately because you'd always be training there.
Yeah, man. I mean, like to stay in good position on your feet as a wrestler, you got to have your knees bent, your back is bent over, like you're in like a fairly uncomfortable position,
Yeah.
but you need to be there for 7 minutes or you're going to get taken down.
Okay.
So just being tired and uncomfortable, I think you're going to see that a little bit more in wrestling than you would any other sport. It's
Wow.
just, and I understand my bias, man. I get it, but I don't care. Like, I think that's so true. You're going to be there, but I think as a wrestler, you're going to be able to persevere through it a lot easier than any other background who
Yeah.
gets tired.
Okay. You had said that it's hard for you guys to get numbers in your gym and all that stuff. And usually, and I know this because anybody who's trained in any martial arts, joining a gym, and if you're serious about it, it's not usually just picking, you just can't pick anywhere and be
Mhm.
like, hey, I'm gonna fit in here and all that stuff. Usually the gym has a state of mind, they have a shared traits of them. They just a type of person for a type of gym. So for
Mm.
your gym, what is usually the kind of person that goes in there who is like, hey, you know what, this is my gym and all that stuff? Because
Okay.
is that true? Are the same like-minded people in that gym? And if so, what is that trait?
Okay. So, two things. When I said that, what I should have said, it's hard for me to get numbers into my wrestling class, is what I
Oh,
should
okay.
have said. But on to your question, the type of people that we usually get there, I don't like using the word average Joe, but it's a
Okay.
person who enjoys going to the gym. Like the why was a big thing for a while, but maybe I don't want to use, go on a treadmill or I want to lift weights. I want to get in shape by other means.
Mm-hmm.
By learning how to fight, learning how to kick and punch. Like our cardio kickboxing class is probably our most popular class, and you'll find people who will never step in the ring, and people
Yeah.
who are training full time in that class. So I think the gym is for people who are just fans of mixed martial arts, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling. Also, I think it's just people who are actually trying to train
Okay.
and could really see themselves having a future in it. I think that's our two biggest demographics.
Awesome. So what is it that you see in common between your serious fighters, like guys who want to compete in pro leagues like the UFC or Bellator or any pro clubs?
Um, I think the biggest thing is just the amount of times they're actually coming to class.
Okay.
You can kind of tell the people who are asking questions, who are engaged, who are making a point to not just go to their favorite disciplines class. They go to all the classes just to learn.
Hmm.
Um, those are the people you can kind of tell, and also the people who are avidly looking for some kind of competition. You know, um, one next jujitsu competition. They're happening all the time. But the people who are looking to try to compete, they're usually vocal about it. So that's
Hmm.
the people you kind of you know you want to spend more time with. Because
Yeah.
you see that they're not just doing this just for the sake of doing it. They're actually trying to compete. And like it's almost like when I'm coaching like little kids, you see the people whose parents are bringing them there versus the kids who want to be there. You can see
Oh,
what time you can see where your time you can see where you spend most of your time coaching. It's
okay.
not to say that you're not coaching them all the same way, but you can really see, all right, I'm going to invest a little bit more time in this person because they are really training here. They really want to be here. So I can kind of see that with the fighters who actually want to be there. Like they're always coming to classes. They're asking relevant questions. Seeing where they can compete. And
Yeah.
like,
So those are the people that you tend to feed the fire. Like,
yeah, exactly.
awesome, awesome, awesome. So, I gotta say, I'm a patriot. I know you are a patriot as well. And hey, we see an uprising of Dagestani wrestlers here. It seems like a lot of places, not only the UFC, you got Bellator, you got other places. These guys are coming out, they're branching out. Why do you think it is that they're so successful? And what's the difference between Dagestani wrestling and good old American wrestling?
um, if we're just talking wrestling specific, and I want to say that I'll answer the
Yeah.
question, but like
Okay,
if
yeah.
we're doing wrestling specific, I think we're in better condition.
Yeah.
I just think that's there's no way looking around that. I think we're in better condition than most all Russians, but I think it's kind of cool that we're seeing some of the Dagestani guys make the transition to fighting. Yeah, I'm a patriot too. I think our style of wrestling I think it works better. I think towards being offensive. I like to see that.
Okay.
I think Americans as a whole are just one of the more offensive wrestlers in the world compared to any other country. Some of those guys, man. What I'm trying to say here. I like the fact that they are becoming pretty big, and especially like in UFC, at least from what I've been watching.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the reason they're getting a lot of hype behind them is because there's a lot of select individuals that have been elevated to this superstardom, to this Hall of Fame type track. It's
Yeah.
not that they're just taking over, mixed martial arts, but the ones that are, not to the point that they are outliers, but there's a lot of them that are just really good right now, and it's like relevant right now. So I can't speak to the entirety of mixed martial arts, and Dagestani is just taking over completely.
Yeah. No, that's great to hear. We just, like I said, we cover stuff here. It's called the Casual Conversation because this is for people who love both MMA and who are diehard addicts, and then people who are just learning about it. And this is a great way to get people to know the inner workings of the foundation that brings a fighter to a successful camp. And
Yeah.
I'd like to ask this question. Before I let you go, this will be the last question. What's the future of wrestling looking like for you, like in the next 2 years? Like you had just said, that in this time moment, that's getting the spotlight. But where do you feel like wrestling's going to in the next 2 years?
Man, I think wrestling's starting to, I think it's starting to get bigger, especially in the US. I
Yeah.
really think so, man. I think that people are starting to see that you can be successful at this sport. Um, I remember I was watching online just some old NCAA tournaments. I'm just like, man, like, and I say old, like the past 3 or 4 years, and there were like people that I did not recognize. I had no idea, and I was like, wow, like it's gotten to the point where there's enough All American wrestlers that not in direct contact with or in like direct correlation with training with anymore. It's like it's getting big. It's getting huge.
Yeah.
Big shout out to Flow Wrestling, man. They cover so much wrestling. They cover high school, college, international, and like having that kind of platform with people who are just so engaged and just know so much about the sport, it makes it even more fun to be a part of. Like Flow Wrestling was around when I was in high school, but I wasn't so much on the fan side of wrestling. Now that I'm not competing full-time wrestling, I get to really see the production value that they're bringing to the sport. And it's like, man, like this is what it's supposed to be like. This is how you become a fan, is when you have people like this who are putting so much money and so much interest into wrestling. This is great. So I think it's growing, to be honest.
That's awesome. Like I said, that'll be it for us. I'm happy to have you on the show. It's great. I'd love to shoot the shit with you some other time.
Yeah, man, this is fun.
Yeah, I know it's fun for me. But this weekend you got Derek. You're going to be in Derek Brunson's corner, UFC Fight Night. If anybody is tuning in, go for my man over here. I'm going to be looking out for you guys. I wish you nothing but the best, and hopefully we can see you fight soon, man. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, man. May 8th, I have one in Myrtle Beach.
Oh,
That's my next one, and I think we're going to try to fast track this thing. Hopefully, I can get 3 more fights in by the end of the year, and then we'll reevaluate if I'm gonna keep being a carpenter and
yeah, okay.
or start fighting for real, for real.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, like I said, thank you for your time, and we'll see you later, all right?
Yeah, thanks, man.